Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja, coming up in the next hour. Malaysia ready to host 47th Association of Southeast Asian Nations in Kuala Lumpur. Prime Minister Modi to attend ASEAN-India Summit virtually tomorrow. First day of US-China trade talks concludes in Malaysia. Washington describes the talks very constructive as Trump-Xi are due to meet in South Korea next week. Trump increases military presence in South America with deployment of the world's largest warship off the Caribbean. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accuses the US of fabricating war in the region. Pakistan Defence Minister warns of open war with Afghanistan if peace talks fail in Istanbul. And India's foreign exchange reserves rose by $4.5 billion to cross $702 billion mark on the back of a surge in gold reserves. Tensions are once again rising between the world's two largest economies as Washington and Beijing try to find common ground. With the high-stakes talks and a possible meeting between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping on the horizon, all eyes are on efforts to prevent a fresh escalation in the ongoing trade war.
The world's two largest economies are back at the negotiating table, trying to avert another trade war showdown. As US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are set to meet in South Korea next week in what could be a make-or-break moment for global markets. President Trump, embarking on his first East Asia visit since taking office this year, said he is hoping for a very good meeting with Xi and expects China to strike a deal to avoid another round of massive tariffs as high as 100% set to kick in on November 1.
We have a lot of things to discuss, including our farmers. We have a lot of things to discuss. The various trade deals that have been made in the past, and some broken, some not broken, but we've got many things. I think it's going to turn out to be a very good meeting. Yeah, sure. They have to make concessions. I guess we would too. We're at 157% tariff for them. I don't think that's sustainable for them, and they want to get that down. And we want certain things from them. I think it'll be very good. What do you think?
President Trump also signals that he wants Beijing's help in managing Washington's strained ties with Moscow.
Well, I'd love China to help us out with Russia. We put very big sanctions on Russia. I think those sanctions are going to be, they're very biting, they're very strong. But I'd like to see China help us out. One of the things we'll talk about is the Russia-Ukraine. They're killing 7,000 people a week. Soldiers, mostly soldiers. And we'll certainly be talking about that. He'd like to see that end.
Meanwhile, in Kuala Lumpur, top economic officials from both nations have wrapped up their first day of talks. The US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent met with China's Vice Premier He Lifeng, with officials describing the discussions as very constructive. Tensions remain high as Washington and Beijing have already raised tariffs on each other's goods and threatened to halt trade, key minerals and technology. All eyes are now on South Korea as Trump and Xi prepare for a high-stake meeting that could decide the fate of global trade. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, world leaders are uniting for Ukraine as back-channel diplomacy heats up. In London, the so-called Coalition of the Willing met to coordinate strategies to end the Russia-Ukraine war, vying to gradually phase out Russian oil and gas from the global market. The meeting follows US President Trump's latest sanctions targeting Russia's two largest oil producers. This move quickly matched by the European Union, which also announced additional sanctions and committed to financing Ukraine for the next 2 years. Meanwhile, Russia is sending envoys to the United States for talks, signaling cautious engagement amid rising pressure. More in our next report.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has intensified efforts to sustain Ukraine's defense against Russian aggression. During a recent summit in London, Zelensky urged the United States and its allies to expand sanctions on Russian oil companies beyond Rosneft and Lukoil, stressing that such measures are vital to curb Russia's military capabilities. This week, US President Donald Trump imposed stringent sanctions on Russia's two largest state-owned oil companies, Rosneft and Lukoil, cutting them off from US financial systems. Following the US move, European leaders group Coalition of the Willing convened its meeting in London where they vowed for coordinated action to ramp up pressure on Russia. The leaders said the coalition aims to gradually phase out Russian oil and gas from the global market and to channel frozen Russian assets into funding Ukraine's reconstruction. The summit emphasized the need for more countries to implement sanctions targeting Russia's energy sector. The EU quickly rolled out additional sanctions and agreed to provide financing to Ukraine over the next 2 years, highlighting the international commitment to sustaining Kyiv in the face of Russian aggression. Leaders also decided to accelerate the delivery of long-range strike and air defense weapons to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russia has pursued diplomatic engagement with US. Russian envoy Kirill Dmitriev reached Washington on Friday to explore possible avenues for bilateral economic cooperation. Dmitriev underscored the importance of dialogue to resolve the crisis. He noted that Ukraine's willingness to consider a ceasefire along current front lines could signal a potential shift towards negotiations. On Trump's sanctions, Kirill Dmitriev said that he does not believe that US sanctions on Russian oil companies will have any significant impact on the Russian economy. Bureau Report, DD India.
On to Asia, US President Donald Trump is headed to the continent on Saturday. He will attend the 47th ASEAN Leaders Summit in Kuala Lumpur. Trump is due to arrive in Kuala Lumpur on Sunday morning on the first stop of his trip through Asia. Malaysian authorities ramped up security measures in Kuala Lumpur for the three-day ASEAN Summit. Security personnel were seen conducting thorough checks at all entry points to the venue of the summit, the Kuala Lumpur Convention Centre. The summit comes at a critical time as the region grapples with tensions in the South China Sea, the ongoing crisis in Myanmar, and efforts to strengthen economic integration amid global trade uncertainties. Meanwhile, Thai Prime Minister cancelled his trip to the ASEAN Summit in Malaysia due to the Queen Mother's death, but said that he still wanted to jet in for a peace deal with Cambodia to be witnessed by US President Donald Trump. Ahead of US President Donald Trump's visit to South Korea for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation APEC Summit, thousands of South Korean protesters held a rally in downtown Seoul condemning his tariff policies and pressure on South Korea to invest in the United States. Back to the US. Early voting for New York's next mayor began on Saturday with Democratic state lawmaker Zohran Mamdani emerging as the frontrunner. The 34-year-old Queens-based socialist has surged ahead after current mayor Eric Adams dropped out and former governor Andrew Cuomo re-entered the race. Mamdani's campaign centered on tackling the city's soaring cost of living and promising a rent freeze for 2 million residents. This has resonated strongly with the voters. Early voting runs until November the 2nd, with Election Day on November the 4th and the winner set to take office in the new year. According to latest citywide polls, Mamdani currently leads with 47% support ahead of Cuomo by 18 points. A day after Afghanistan announced plans to build a dam on the Kunar River, which originates from Pakistan's Chitral district, Pakistan has warned that if peace talks with Afghanistan break down, armed conflict is inevitable. During the ongoing talks in Istanbul, Pakistan's Defence Minister Khwaja Asif said that he believes Afghanistan wants peace, but failure to reach an agreement with Afghanistan could lead to an open war. Asif's remarks came days after both countries agreed to a ceasefire following deadly border clashes. Recent tensions between the two countries have led to actual armed clashes. The two countries have pointed to the Islamist armed group Pakistan-Taliban, that's Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, as the cause of the clashes. The Financial Action Task Force, FATF, the global terror funding watchdog, has warned Pakistan that its removal from the grey list in October 2022 doesn't make it immune to money laundering and terrorist financing. FATF President Elisa de Anda Madrazo emphasized in a press conference in France that countries, including Pakistan, must continue implementing measures to prevent and deter crimes. Pakistan was removed from the FATF grey list in October 2022 and has been under follow-up to ensure that it is implementing anti-terror financing measures. The comments by the FATF president come amid reports of Jaish-e-Mohammed using digital wallets to fund terror camps, masking financial flows. Notably, India's National Risk Assessment 2022 identifies Pakistan as a high-risk terror financing source. A landmark UN cybercrime treaty aimed at tackling offences that cost the global economy trillions of dollars annually was signed in Vietnam's capital Hanoi by around 60 countries on Saturday. The convention, which will take effect after it is ratified by 40 nations, is expected to streamline international cooperation against cybercrime, but has been criticized by activists and tech companies over concerns of possible human rights abuses. The convention targets a broad spectrum of offences, from phishing and ransomware to online trafficking and hate speech. The UN has said that cybercrime, according to estimates, costs the global economy trillions of dollars every year.
UN Cybercrime Convention is a powerful, legally binding instrument to strengthen our collective defences against cybercrime. It is a promise that fundamental human rights, such as privacy, dignity, and safety, must be protected both offline and online. It is a testament to the continued power of multilateralism to deliver solutions. And it is a vow that no country, no matter their level of development, will be left defenseless against cybercrime. Over the years, cyberspace has become fertile ground for criminals, giving them unprecedented reach and the ability to move at speeds unimaginable just a decade ago. Every day, sophisticated scams defraud families, steal livelihoods, and drain billions of dollars from our economy.
Iran declared I&A Bank, one of its largest private lenders, bankrupt on Saturday, with its assets taken over by the state. Founded in 2012, I&A Bank had 270 branches, including 150 in Tehran, but was hit by debt totaling around $2.9 billion and losses of $5.2 billion. Its assets have been taken over by state-owned Melli Bank, with the central bank assuring depositors that they can recover their savings. Melli's director confirmed the transfer is now complete. You're watching the India News Hour, still to come on the show. Vice President of India, C.P. Radhakrishnan, to represent the country at the swearing-in ceremony of Seychelles President Dr. Patrick Herminier. Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology Ashwini Vaishnav says India is on its way to become self-reliant in mobile manufacturing. And the NDA intensifies election campaigning for the upcoming Bihar Assembly polls.
Sometimes even the smallest things like changing our food habits or nurturing a patch of land or rethinking our relationship with the animals around us can spark a transformation that reaches way beyond ourselves.
Neighborhood Group joined forces with the local cafe to launch Feeding Forward, a program that distributes surplus food to street dogs. The idea is to reduce both waste and animal aggression.
Familial Forestry emphasizes that we are ready to own a responsibility to nurture that particular tree like a green member of family.
Our vision for this is to have every rooftop in Chennai covered by a vegetable green garden.
Sindhu's solution is a fresh salad delivery service called Salada. She and her husband have created 10 jobs and serve over 3,000 customers in Chennai.
Welcome back. You're watching the India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. World leaders are gathering in Kuala Lumpur as Malaysia hosts the 47th ASEAN Summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will participate in ASEAN-India Summit virtually tomorrow. ASEAN is central to India's Act East policy and plays a key role in global geopolitics, given its strategic location and economic potential. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh reports.
Kuala Lumpur becomes the epicenter of global diplomacy this weekend as Malaysia hosts the 47th ASEAN Summit. ASEAN stands for Association of Southeast Asian Nations, a regional intergovernmental organization of 10 member countries, including Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. East Timor is set to become ASEAN Bloc's 11th member. ASEAN is central to India's Act East policy, serving as a cornerstone for economic, strategic, and cultural engagement across the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to join the ASEAN-India Summit virtually. Earlier this week, Prime Minister Modi spoke with Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim and extended greetings on Malaysia's assumption of ASEAN chairmanship. He conveyed best wishes for the successful conduct of ASEAN-related summits under Malaysia's leadership. PM Modi reaffirmed India's commitment to further strengthen ASEAN-India Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will represent India at the 20th East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur. India and ASEAN will look to strengthen cooperation in maritime security, counter-terrorism and cybersecurity, expedite ASEAN-India trade in goods agreement to make it more effective and user-friendly, promote diverse, secure, transparent and resilient supply chains, cooperate in humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, peacekeeping measures, cooperate on emerging technologies, including AI, blockchain, Internet of Things, robotics, quantum, and 6G, boost people-to-people ties with 2025 designated as the ASEAN-India Year of Tourism. ASEAN sits at the crossroads of major shipping lanes and economic corridors between the Pacific and Indian Oceans, amplifying its geopolitical and economic importance. US President Donald Trump, Brazil President Inácio Lula da Silva, along with a host of leaders from across the world, are gathering in Kuala Lumpur to engage with the Southeast Asian bloc. ASEAN countries have a population of over 670 million, making it the third most populous region in the world and a combined GDP of $3.9 trillion. Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India.
As Malaysia is hosting the ASEAN Summit this year, our correspondent Akhilesh Suman spoke to the High Commissioner of Malaysia to India, Dato Muzaffar Shah Mustafa.
This time, ASEAN Summit is taking place in Malaysia's capital, Kuala Lumpur. And here with me is the High Commissioner of Malaysia to India, Dato Muzaffar Shah. Excellency, your country is hosting ASEAN Summit at a unique time when the whole world is getting affected and challenged by Trump tariff. So do you think that ASEAN as a grouping will interact with Donald Trump and find a solution?
As you know, US is also one of the dialogue partners for ASEAN. So this year, as what we have done it previously. So I hope there will be opportunity to interact with all the leaders of ASEAN dialogue partners, including the US.
High-level delegation from India is also visiting ASEAN. How do you think that India-ASEAN are going to form a new trajectory when there are many challenges in the world at this moment?
There will be two meetings. One will be East Asia Summit and also ASEAN-India Summit. So there are a lot of opportunities for ASEAN and also India to interact during these meetings. And then of course for the ASEAN-India Summit, there will be review all of the ASEAN-India dialogue relations and also the future direction of ASEAN-India relations. So that's, the opportunity for ASEAN and also India to chart the way forward, especially in discussing, as what has been adopted during ASEAN ministerial meeting, right. ASEAN-India ministerial meeting, especially under the ASEAN-India Plan of Action 2026 to 2030.
And India-Malaysia relations are also exemplary. And at a time when India is thinking to become a developed country by 2047, how do you think that Malaysia and India can cooperate in, fulfilling India's plan and India's goal of achieving the developed nation's status?
India's vision of becoming a developed nation by 2047, our two economies are complementary. Yeah. So there's a lot of areas that we can work together to address all the challenges, especially now for Malaysia. India is a very important regional player. So, no doubt that we need to support each other, especially during, uncertainties of the global economies.
Business delegation is also visiting from India to Malaysia this time for the ASEAN Summit.
There will be also a sidelines program focusing on promoting business. India's business delegation, but there's also a business summit going to be held in conjunction with the Malaysia's hosting the ASEAN Summit this year. So I think always, economic issues have always been now very important to many countries. So I think this is also the time that we try to look how we can strengthen our collaboration in the economic sphere.
Thank you so much, Excellency. So, as the High Commissioner of Malaysia tells that it is one of the important ASEAN summits that is going to take place when BRICS and G20 members are also visiting. This is the time when Global South and developed countries will also interact at this occasion. Akhilesh Suman for DD News and DD India with camera person Jagmohani, Delhi.
Vice President of India, C.P. Radhakrishnan, will visit Seychelles from 26th to 27th of October. The Vice President will represent India at the swearing-in ceremony of President-elect Dr. Patrick Herminier. DD India spoke to the High Commissioner of India to Seychelles to know more about the Vice President's visit. Listen in.
It is a matter of great honor for us to welcome the Honorable Vice President to Seychelles on the occasion of the swearing-in ceremony of the President-elect, Dr. Patrick Herminier. As you are aware, Seychelles had elections here a few weeks ago. This is also Vice President's first foreign visit. We look forward to strengthen our bilateral relationships with Seychelles, which is already a time-tested and multifaceted partnership. Through this visit, it will also be an occasion for Honorable Vice President to interact with the Indian diaspora here and also meet with the dignitaries on the Seychelles side, including a call on the President and a meeting with the new Vice President.
Union Minister of Electronics and Information Technology, Ashwini Vaishnav, said that India is on its way to become self-reliant in the mobile manufacturing industry. He added that within 2 years, complete domestic production of mobile phone components will be done in the country. The minister also said that chipsets for various applications, including CCTV, are being developed in the country. He said that the government will invest over 200 crore rupees to develop energy-efficient microprocessors for high-performance computing, including servers. Ashwini Vaishnav informed that more than 12 lakh central government employees have been onboarded on Zoho's indigenous digital suite so far. He said that a chatbot for fact-checking is also being developed to verify the authenticity of videos and online content. Moving on to Bihar now, where the National Democratic Alliance is intensifying its election campaigning for the upcoming assembly polls. As part of the campaign, Home Minister Amit Shah held a large public rally in Khagadia district. The minister opened his address by extending wishes for the Chhath Puja festival and highlighted the government's development projects and economic growth. Amit Shah stated that the upcoming Bihar elections focus on the state's development, and he credited Prime Minister Modi for strengthening India's economy and securing its borders. India and Australia are participating in the 4th edition of their joint military exercise, Austra-Hind 2025, which will conclude on Sunday. An Indian Army contingent comprising 120 personnel departed on 12th of October for Irwin Barracks, Australia, to participate in the military exercise Austra-Hind. The annual exercise is aimed at enhancing military cooperation, improving interoperability and providing a platform for participating armies to exchange tactics, techniques and procedures in the domain of warfare. The exercise will also focus on joint company-level operations in open and semi-desert terrain, wherein troops will undertake missions ranging from joint planning, tactical drills and special army skills. Still to come on DD India News Hour. An expert take on the Caribbean fast becoming the epicenter of a geopolitical storm. Ivorians cast ballots in presidential election with incumbent Ouattara, 83, seeking probable 4th term. And 60 pilots from 7 countries join the Shimla Paragliding Fest, also known as Shimla's Flying Festival.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Tanvi Taneja. A reminder of the headlines we're tracking at this hour. Malaysia ready to host 47th Association of Southeast Asian Nations in Kuala Lumpur. Prime Minister Modi to attend ASEAN-India Summit virtually on Sunday. First day of US-China trade talks conclude in Malaysia. Washington describes the talks very constructive as Trump-Xi are due to meet in South Korea next week. Trump increases military presence in South America with deployment of the world's largest warship off the Caribbean. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro accuses the US of fabricating war in the region. Tensions are rising in the Caribbean as the United States flexes its military muscle in a show of force not seen in the region for decades. The deployment of USS Gerald R. Ford, America's newest and most powerful aircraft carrier, marks a dramatic escalation in Washington's campaign against Latin American drug cartels. But critics say that this is about more than narcotics. The Caribbean is fast becoming the epicenter of geopolitical storm. The increasing American military buildup off the Caribbean is a clear sign of Trump administration's changing foreign policy approach to the continent. The latest deployment of USS Gerald Ford aircraft carrier group in the Caribbean is a show of force far beyond any past counter-narcotics effort and Washington's most assertive move in the region yet. The Ford, which was commissioned in 2017, is the United States' newest aircraft carrier and the world's largest, with more than 5,000 sailors aboard. Washington has long accused Caracas and Bogota of harboring drug traffickers and undermining democratic institutions. The Pentagon told Congress recently that the United States is in armed conflict with Latin American drug cartels, designating them as terrorist groups and describing suspected smugglers as unlawful combatants. But President Maduro defended Venezuela as a drug-free country, adding that Venezuela will put an end to the cocaine trafficking that comes from neighboring Colombia.
Venezuela is a country free of coca leaf production, free of cocaine production, and we will achieve 100% elimination of the remaining 5% of drug transit that comes from Colombia. We will achieve it.
Further, Maduro also called for the mobilization of the peoples of South America and the Caribbean to avoid conflict and promote peace.
The people of the United States know it. They're making up a new eternal war. They promise that they will never enter a war, and they're making up a war that we will avoid. How? With the mobilization of the people of South America. As South America and the Caribbean all say, no to war, yes to peace, yes to prosperity, yes to harmony and living together.
But fears grow in Venezuela that Washington's ultimate goal is to overthrow the government of President Nicolas Maduro. In neighboring Colombia, thousands of people rallied in Bogota's Bolivar Square to back President Gustavo Petro after the US imposed sanctions on the Colombian leader on Friday. The US Treasury blacklisted Gustavo Petro, First Lady Veronica Alcocer, his eldest son Nicolas, and Interior Minister Armando Benedetti, banning them from travel to the United States and freezing any US assets they hold.
El resumen. I've never done business. I don't have $1 in the United States. There's no account to freeze. I have no desire and I never will to do business in the United States. That is why this gathering has an objective, which is not only to talk about Trump, we will not speak about him anymore in this government.
Experts in Brazil too had a reaction on the standoff. Brasilia feared that any US intervention in Venezuela would rile people across South America and trigger upheaval, a foreign policy aide told news agency AFP. Amid all this, US naval forces stationed in the Caribbean off the coast of Venezuela are destroying boats that Washington says are smuggling drugs towards the United States. At least 43 people have been killed in a total of 10 attacks so far. US officials, however, have offered few details on the identities of those killed in the strikes or what drug trafficking organizations they allegedly belong to. Tanvi Taneja for DD India. And we are now joined by Ms. Meera Shankar, former Indian ambassador to the USA. Welcome, ma'am, to DD India News Hour. So in recent days, there's been a huge US military build-up off the Caribbean, including the deployment of the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford. This is a part of Washington's new campaign against Latin American drug cartels. Why this big change in approach to fight narco-terrorists?
Well, I think Trump has made security of the homeland his first priority and security in the Western Hemisphere, as he calls it, which means the Americas. Now, of course, there has been a history of drug smuggling from Latin America into the US. But it is not as though that has aggravated. So there is this sense that under the guise of fighting narco-terrorism, the US is actually seeking regime change in Venezuela to overthrow the government of Nicolas Maduro. And that is what Maduro alleges. And perhaps we really don't know what the US objective is, whether it's going to stop at intercepting narcotics or drug smuggled, which are being smuggled, or taking military action against smugglers' boats, or whether it is going to extend to really pressurizing a regime change in Venezuela. Because Venezuela has oil, and for President Trump, I think access to resources has become one of the key components of his strategy. If you see, he wanted Canada to join the US as a new state, he wanted Greenland, and Venezuela has high energy resources, especially fossil fuel, which President Trump has started exploiting. He has given permission for exploiting fossil fuel resources in a big way. So we have to wait and watch.
Okay.
Now, it would be a pity in a sense because the US had moved towards a more mature policy in Latin America, where they had accepted social democratic left-wing governments in a way in which they had not accepted them in the past. And there have been natural cycles in which these governments have been voted out of power, and new right-wing governments have been voted in, and those right-wing governments have been voted out, and left-wing governments. So a more normal democratic, or more stable, if you could say, democratic cycle had started to establish itself in Latin America, in South America. But if we go back to the era of, when the US was overthrowing regimes like, in Chile or elsewhere, then I think we are really going back, the US would be going backwards in its policies vis-a-vis the Southern. There's no threat. I would say the main challenge that the US faces in Southern America is really the enormous economic presence that China has developed and the Chinese control of resources in many of these countries. But the question is, how is Trump going to take that on? Because we are not sure what his policy towards China is going to be.
And that will be decided, of course, next week when Trump and Xi meet. But ma'am, how sincere and accurate is Venezuela's President Maduro when he says that Venezuela is a drug-free country and says that he'll put an end to cocaine trafficking? That comes from neighboring Colombia. Do his efforts so far to curb cocaine trafficking match his claims?
Well, cocaine trafficking Colombia has been the center of cocaine trafficking into the US, and a lot of drugs have flowed across the Mexican border actually into the US. You have Mexican cartels, you have Colombian cartels. Venezuela has not been a major source of drugs, but yes, the government of Nicolas Maduro has not really had free and fair elections in Venezuela. And the US has tried to overthrow the regime in the past or tried to, build an opposition, but they haven't succeeded as yet. And this is a continuation of the regime of Hugo Chavez and a very left-wing nationalistic platform. So I think there may be voices in the US saying the time has come to try and see if we can again resurrect the whole issue of regime change. You've seen the Nobel Peace Prize also, which has been given to a key member of the Venezuelan opposition. And it's a political choice. And so you can see that there is a renewed focus on the political scene in Venezuela.
Okay. Is this new method now being used by the US to target narco-terrorists, as they call these smugglers, involving the use of F-35s, US Navy ships, and now its largest warship, with current strained relations with Venezuela and Colombia? So this new strategy, do you think it will likely achieve its objective, or could it prove futile or even counterproductive?
Well, it could prove counterproductive because, you know, Latin America has basically reacted in an antagonistic manner to what could be described as gunboat diplomacy, because they've experienced it in the past. And you've seen pressure is not just limited to Venezuela or Colombia, but it's also been exerted on Brazil. And you heard, Brazil too faces 50% tariff, even though Brazil actually has a trade deficit with the US. It's the US which has a trade surplus. And the whole idea is to break up the BRICS, to exert, and you've heard Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary of the US, saying, we have to fix India and Brazil. So I think it's something which doesn't go down well. Even if the US is able to force its way and to pressurize countries into accepting its policies, I think in the long run, it can build up a well of resentment against the US, which finds expression in the politics of those countries.
Okay, so thank you very much, ma'am. That was an interesting analysis there. Well, South America's tilt towards the China, and of course, Trump being very afraid of the grouping BRICS. We like to sum it up here. Thank you very much, Meera Shankarji, for being with us on the show. All right, Ivorians on Saturday voted to elect a new president, an election largely seen as a test of stability for the West African nation. Incumbent President Ouattara, 83, is widely tipped to secure a controversial fourth term in office as divisions within the opposition deepened after several key rivals were barred from contesting. Ouattara first came to power in 2011 following a 4-month civil war that claimed around 3,000 lives. Provisional results are expected within 5 days, and a runoff will be held if no candidate secures more than 50% of the vote. Next, we take a look at other stories making news in India. The 2025 Army Commanders Conference concluded on Saturday in Jaisalmer, bringing together senior Indian Army leaders to review the security situation, deliberate on key strategic issues, and set priorities for building a future-ready force. In Pulwama, Jammu and Kashmir, cold storage facilities have helped apple growers after landslides and bad weather closed the Srinagar-Jammu highway, disrupting transport to markets. Modern units in Pulwama, Shopia and Kulgam have allowed farmers to preserve their produce and avoid major financial losses. The 4-day Third International Shimla Flying Festival, along with a pre-World Cup and pre-Asian League Paragliding Championship and an MSME Expo, began at Junga on Saturday. Nearly 60 pilots from 7 countries and participants from 10 Indian states are taking part in the Shimla Flying Festival. And IIT Madras celebrated the grand finale of the second edition of Ideas to Impact, this I2I challenge, on Saturday ahead of World Sustainability Day. The event showcased 38 eco-innovations by young innovators across India, focusing on sustainability, circular economy and climate resilience. The top 10 teams will receive up to 1 lakh rupees in seed grants and incubation support to develop prototypes into market-ready products. You're with us on DD India News Hour, still to come on the show. In some sad news, veteran comic actor Satish Shah passes away at the age of 74 in Mumbai. India avoids a whitewash against Australia with an easy 9-wicket win in the third ODI at Sydney.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you. You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I am Tanvi Taneja. Some business news now from India. India's foreign exchange reserves have once again crossed the $700 billion mark, rising to $702 billion in the week that ended October 17th, according to the latest data released by the Central Bank, Reserve Bank of India. The country's total reserves grew by $4.4 billion during the reported week, mainly driven by a sharp increase in gold reserves, which jumped by $6.1 billion. Gold prices also saw a significant rise, climbing to $4,251 an ounce, up from $4,017 per ounce in the previous week. India's foreign exchange reserves had previously touched a record high of $705 billion in September 2024. Some sad news coming now. Veteran Indian actor Satish Shah is no more. He passed away at the age of 74 at his residence in Bandra East, Mumbai on Saturday. A graduate of the Film and Television Institute of India, FTII, Satish Shah began his acting journey with films such as Arvind Desai Ki Ajeeb Dastaan 1978 and Gaman 1979. His breakthrough came with the hugely popular 1980s sitcom Ye Jo Hai Zindagi. In this sitcom, he showcased his incredible versatility by portraying multiple characters in each episode. He is also known for his portrayal of Indravadan Sarabhai in the cult favourite comedy Sarabhai vs. Sarabhai, winning hearts with his impeccable timing and wit. In cinema, Shah delivered one of his most memorable performances as Commissioner de Mello in the 1983 classic Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, a film remembered for his biting satire and unforgettable humour. Over the decades, Satish Shah went on to appear in several successful films, including Main Hoon Na, Kabhi Haan Kabhi Na, Kal Ho Na Ho and Bhootnath. Prime Minister Modi condoled the passing away of the veteran actor, calling Satish Shah a true legend of Indian entertainment. Taking to social media platform X, Prime Minister Modi wrote, and I quote him here, deeply saddened by the passing of Satish Shah ji. He'll be remembered as a true legend of Indian entertainment. His effortless humour and iconic performances brought laughter into countless lives. Condolences to his family and admirers. Om Shanti. Unquote. On the weather front now, Storm Melissa hit Jamaica while France grapples with Storm Benjamin. In Southeast Asia, torrential rains and floods are creating a menace. DD India's Adamya Mishra gives us the weather roundup.
Extreme weather is wreaking havoc across the globe, with Storm Melissa hitting the Caribbean country of Jamaica, which is believed to be Jamaica's strongest hurricane till date. Torrential rains have also been pounding parts of Haiti and the Dominican Republic for several days, damaging infrastructure, flooding roadways and triggering landslides. After Jamaica, Cuba is likely to be the next country in the Storm Melissa's path. Eastern Cuba could face heavy destructive winds and flooding from the storm by midweek. The Caribbean is no stranger to hurricanes, but tropical storm Melissa is causing unique concerns due to its slow movement, which can amplify the destructive potential of the storm. On the other hand, northern France is facing a severe weather as Storm Benjamin, a deep Atlantic low-pressure system, brought heavy rains and strong winds. Paris and nearby regions are under alerts, with coastal gusts reaching 70 miles per hour. Elsewhere, in India, the state of Odisha has been put on high alert as a cyclonic system strengthened over Bay of Bengal. According to Indian Meteorological Department, a low-pressure area that formed over the southeast Bay of Bengal on Friday is likely to intensify further into a cyclonic storm. The department has issued a yellow alert for the entire state, with some regions bracing for extremely heavy rainfall. Adamya Mishra's report for DD India.
The 4-day grand festival of Chhath Puja begins today with the traditional ritual of Nahai Khai. On this day, devotees take a holy dip in rivers, ponds and other water bodies such as the Ganges or local streams, symbolizing the purification of body and soul. Devotees and worshippers gather along river banks, taking holy dips. To ensure the best experience for devotees observing the Chhath Puja, fasting and offering aragya, which means offering to the sun, the preparations were made by the Government of Delhi at around 1,000 sites across New Delhi, including the development of 17 model ghats. Embankments are being built alongside the river to create a seamless experience. For security, wooden barricades have been installed along the banks of the Yamuna River. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended his greetings on the first day of the Chhath Puja celebrations. In a post on X, he wrote, and I quote him, "With the sacred ritual of Nahai Khai, the 4-day grand festival of Chhath is commencing auspiciously from today. My heartfelt best wishes to the devotees across the country, including Bihar. My salutations and homage to all the observers of the fast." Unquote. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sporting action. India's cricketing stalwarts Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli steered India to a 9-wicket win over hosts Australia in the third and final ODI at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The Rohit Kohli-Rocco duo turned back the clock and made the chase look easy. Both stamped their authority with a 168-run partnership, taking India to the finish line in just 38.3 overs. Harshit Rana impressed with the ball, taking 4 wickets. Here's a look at India's impressive win and the records broken during this match.
India signed off the ODI series against Australia on a high, registering a commanding 9-wicket win in the third and final match at the Sydney Cricket Ground. The legendary duo of Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli rolled back the years, guiding India to a comfortable chase of 237 in just 38.3 overs. After Shubman Gill fell early for 24, it was the Rocco show that took over. The two modern-day greys added an unbeaten 168-run stand, making the chase look effortless. Rohit Sharma brought up his 33rd ODI 100 and 50th international century overall, while Virat Kohli silenced all talk about his form with his 75th ODI half-century. In the process, Kohli broke Sachin Tendulkar's record for the most 50-plus scores in ODI run chases, now standing alone with 70 such knocks to his name. He also became second highest run scorer of all time in ODI history. Rohit, with his 6th ton in Australia, he has gone past Virat Kohli in terms of scoring the most ODI hundreds by a visiting batter in Down Under. Rohit Sharma also now has the most centuries in a country for a visiting opener in ODIs. The pair also edged another milestone, registering their 19th century partnership in ODIs, the third most by any pair in history. With their 168-run partnership, Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma have equalled Sachin Tendulkar's and Saurav Ganguly's record for most 150-plus partnerships in ODI cricket. Rohit and Kohli also became the most prolific Indian batting pair against Australia in ODIs, surpassing Rohit and Dhawan's long-standing record with 1,368 runs as partners against the Aussies. Earlier in the day, Harshit Rana spearheaded India's bowling attack with a career best figures of 4 for 39 as Australia were bundled out for 236 after being well placed at 183 for 3. Washington's Sundar and Akshar Patel provided excellent support with tight spells, while India's bowlers shared all 10 wickets among them in a disciplined effort. Despite the series lost 2-1 in Australia's favour, India ended on a strong note, with their ex-captain reminding the world that class is permanent. At the SCG, it wasn't just a win, it was a statement of vintage dominance from Indian cricket's greatest duo. Sports Desk, DD India.
The Indian polo team clinched the Cognivera International Polo Cup 2025 in a thrilling contest held at Delhi's Jaipur Polo Ground. India defeated Argentina by a narrow margin of 10-9 to lift the coveted trophy. Union Ministers Gajendra Singh Shekhawat and Kiren Rijiju, along with Member of Parliament and polo player Naveen Jindal and poet Kumar Vishwas, were present at the venue to cheer for the players. After the match, Union Minister Gajendra Singh Shekhawat felicitated the winning team by presenting the trophy, while MP Naveen Jindal lauded the Indian team's outstanding performance.
बहुत ही रोमांचक मैच था ये और आप देख रहे हैं कि यहाँ हजारों दर्शकों ने इसका आनंद लिया इस मैच का और फिर एक गोल से भारत की टीम ने विजय हासिल की.
Performance was astonishing. We saw the best of the India team and the Argentine team. It's so close, so India took the win. So anyway, behind the spirit of this event is always the polo connection from Argentina and India, and we hope to do many more events reciprocally. But I wanted to especially thank the India Polo Association and everyone that made this possible.
That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. For those on the go, you can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates from India and the world. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.